Hey everybody, Michael here from Avesi. I'm back with part 2 of the 3-part rain garden considerations video. Now in this second part, we're going to be talking about the size of the rain garden, the shape of the rain garden. For a link to part 1, which is on water and getting water into the rain garden, I'll put a link to that video in the description of this video. Most of the aspects I'm going to be covering in this series will be already discussed in my book, The Modern Rain Garden, and those that are not will be in the second version, which is planned for either late 2023 or early 2024. Now, this book can be found on Amazon and my website. I'll put a link to both of those places in the description of this video. So the first consideration for today is the actual size of the rain garden. This is something that trips up a lot of people. It's a very common question or area of concern that I get. And the good news is it's actually super easy to get an idea of how big the rain garden should be. So if you take the catchment area or the area that's going to be actually draining water to the rain garden, and in most times in a residential setting, that's just a portion of the roof that's going to be feeding the downspout that drains into the rain garden. Once you know that size, it's a basic, length times width multiplication equation. If you have that area, then you can take 10 to 20% of the area, and that should give you a range of how big it should be. Now, this is a very loose range because it can be, at the end of the day, as big or as small as you want it to be. It has to fit into the space also. So don't take this 10, 20% number as how big it has to be. It's a loose guideline. It can be however big you want it to be. The second consideration is the actual shape of it. Now, I prefer shallow rain gardens over really deep rain gardens, and I prefer a larger footprint over a smaller footprint. So with that, I use the pasta bowl versus the cereal bowl as the reference point for what I kind of have my rain gardens look like. Typically, they look more like the pasta bowl, right, where it's got a larger bottom and gently sloping sides, versus the cereal bowl that has a smaller bottom and very steep sides. At the end of the day, as long as you're providing a designated low spot for the water to gather, pool, and then eventually absorb into the ground, you really can't go wrong. So as long as it's not a mound, right, as long as you have that shallow bowl shape, you can do pretty much whatever shape you want. The third and final consideration in this portion is how does the rain garden fit into the overall design schematic of the landscape? I like to use the phrase islands versus continents to kind of help people visualize how it might fit. So I prefer continents over islands, and what I mean by that is if you take a lawn and you take garden spaces, I would rather have one big patch of lawn and one big patch of garden than islands of garden randomly situated within a big sea of grass, right? So I like to kind of separate them. It makes maintenance a lot easier because if you have one big sea of grass and random island gardens situated throughout, there's so many more edges that you have to go around and maintain. So I like to have just one big edge that I can maintain and keep it nice and neat, and it has the landscape looking as one cohesive unit. So that's all I had for part 2. Most of my rain garden related content I share on Instagram at Avesi Stormwater. You can send me a DM through there. You can also contact me through my website, avesistormwater.com. Again, this will be linked in the video description below. If anybody has any rain garden questions in a broad sense, feel free to let me know. Drop a comment in this video and I will gladly address it. Other than that, the rain garden content is going to be based on what I see from my clients throughout the growing season. So as it's March here, April just around the corner, I'll be going out and seeing a lot of properties, building a lot of rain gardens. So I'll share my experiences with you guys. Thanks, guys.